Scott Jessen. I am the Director of Product Development with Tennant Products. I am here to discuss some of the things that we've actually learned, some of the new findings, the conversations that I've had with various different doctors and different articles that we have read, dive into our brain health. And so we're going to dive into brain health, cognitive function, understanding brain fog and why that happens, what systems in our body actually cause that, and how we can actually support that. So when we dive into this, we're going to look at brain health and cognitive function. Today, we're going to talk about, or this evening, depending on where you are, we're going to talk about who we are at Tennant Products, what specific nutrition we need for the brain, brain food, specifically nootropics, and how they work, the microbiome and the brain connection, the liver and the brain connection, how we can actually support the liver, and then we will wrap things up with a Q&A. So one question that I have is that I just want you to think about as we're running through this is that the body requires specific nutrients, and so does the brain. We know when we talk about restore provides nutrients to create new healthy cells, but the brain also needs additional fuel. And so what are you actually putting into your body to help fuel your brain? A little bit about us. Tennant Products is more than a job for us. It is our passion. We go the extra mile to make available therapeutic grade ingredients. So we put the best stuff in that we possibly can. Even as we run into supply chain issues, we're still going the extra mile to make sure that we can do whatever we can to get the best possible ingredients in the best possible form. We are family owned and operated. We make sure that we try and put the purest, most bioavailable form of the products in each product in the best form for your body. It's your body, it's your life, and ingredients matter. Each of us at Tennant Products have a story that represent that, and we want to make sure that we can help you tell your story as well. So when we dive into these things, we know that Dr. Tennant talks about voltage, nutrition, and detox. And he often says that we're constantly wearing out our new cells and have to replace them. We get new cones in our retina and replace the lining of our gut every 2 to 3 days. We replace our skin every 6 weeks and our liver every 8 weeks. And chronic disease occurs when we lose our ability to make these new healthy cells. Well, what's interesting about this is that for a long time, people thought that, well, when you're born, you have the same number of brain cells that you do, and you don't actually create any more brain cells. And you get what you get, and you continue to lose those as you move on. And what we've actually found is that you can actually have neurogenesis. The brain cells take quite a bit longer, and they need appropriate fuel to be able to grow. But we'll get into that just a little bit. The bottom line here is that we actually create new healthy cells, and we need specific nutrients to help support that. So specifically jumping in to Dr. Tennant's brain food, we talked about Restore. We know everybody that's on here knows about Restore and what that provides, but the brain needs something that's a little bit different. And the brain needs wholesome nutrients in their best format so that the brain can actually process that. And the brain specifically uses ketones and MCTs. So ketones are the first form of fuel, and then MCTs, the medium chain triglycerides, follow that up as a backup form. And the way that that works is that the brain can immediately use the ketones. The liver actually converts the MCTs to ketones, and then the brain can use that for sustained fuel. So it's kind of this ongoing process. And when we look at Dr. Tennant's brain food, it's just that. We will dive into the specific ingredients here and this list towards the end of this presentation. But the bottom line is that we are focusing specifically on brain nutrition with this. And then we have Dr. Tennant's Brain Food Plus. Dr. Tennant's Brain Food Plus is kind of that added bonus, right? So we have Dr. Tennant's Brain Food Plus, which combines Dr. Tennant's Brain Food with diatomaceous earth and humic and fulvic acids. Humic and fulvic acids help transport nutrients specifically throughout the body and specifically to every cell in the body at the molecular level. And diatomaceous earth absorbs into the bloodstream as silica, and that plays an important role in many body functions, but has a direct relationship with mineral absorption. So both of those things are very important. And so this can actually help create a longer lasting effect. So we know that diatomaceous earth and humic and fulvic acids not only improve the initial transport of those vitamins, minerals, ketones, fatty acids, which is an important thing we'll get to, throughout the body and more efficiently, but they also work together to help improve brain function at the cellular level or the molecular level. And if you really feel like improving something, then we can actually dive into Dr. Tennant's brain food. Or Dr. Tennant's brain food using the magic, something that we refer to as the magic cocktail. I wanted to put the recipe up just so that everybody could kind of take a look at this. It's something we talk about, but nobody really has a recipe on paper that's going out. And the simple form with this is you'll take H2 True, which is a magnesium effervescent tablet. It creates molecular hydrogen, and that allows the hydrogen to actually go straight to the cell. It's great as an antioxidant. It's great to help support energy, and it's great for healing. So the best way that I found to do this is to add a tablet into purified non-chlorinated water, because we want to make sure that we don't actually have the chlorine that's going straight to the cell as well. So we want to make sure we have that pure water, drop that in, let the tablet dissolve completely, add in Dr. Tennant's brain food, and then add in diatomaceous earth, and then 1 dropper of fulvic super concentrate. The fulvic is going to help transport that, as we mentioned, throughout the cell. Shake that, and then until the powder is all mixed, and enjoy. Instead of your mid-afternoon coffee, or if you want to upgrade your brain food, this is a tremendous way to do that in the afternoon. And the key thing with this is that it actually helps provide the specific nutrients for the brain to fuel the brain, not just for 20 minutes like a cup of coffee, or 5 minutes, or a rush that you're going to get with that Snickers, but longer lasting and sustained mental acuity and focus, providing the fuel for that brain for 3, 4, even 5 hours. All right. Next up, we have nootropics. Now, nootropics is kind of this interesting thing because it's kind of kitschy. I mean, you think about it, and you go, okay, well, nootropics, are those bad? Technically, if you look at the definition, nootropics are defined as a drug, a supplement, or other substance that claims to improve cognitive function, memory, creativity, or motivation for an individual, right? So these could be something like caffeine pills, happy pills, coffee in specific forms with additional additives could be used as that. Some antidepressants can be nootropics. But when we look at nootropics specifically, the question is, what kind are they? What are they doing? Where are they sourced from? Are they synthetic? How are they interacting with your body, and what's going on with that? Technically, by this definition, brain food would actually be a nootropic. Is brain food a bad thing? Well, brain food actually has all of the specific nutrients in the best form that your body can process, which is why that works really well. But what we're going to get into is what form is it in, and how's it actually reacting with the gut itself. When we look at the top nootropics for 2020, the top one is caffeine, and then we have ginkgo biloba, ginseng, creatine, nicotine, and amphetamines or Adderall. So these can have a boost. But then the question is, what's actually happening on the inside of your body, and what's happening with the gut to overall and to affect brain function and cognitive ability overall? Well, let me grab a little water here. Excuse me. All right, let's dive into the microbiome connection. So we've talked a lot about the microbiome. We've heard a lot about the microbiome. And we know that the microbiome is, it's a teeming collection of billions of bacteria, viruses, fungi that live and thrive in the human gut, right? They have a symbiotic relationship. They work really well. The bottom line is that your microbiome controls your mood, your fatigue, your energy level, your cravings, your brain function. Dr. Tennant will even tell you that 80% of the neurochemicals that are created and used in the brain are actually created in the gut. And then there's all of this talk about the second brain connection. Well, scientists understand that there's a close connection between the gut and the brain. It's specifically the bacteria, how the bacteria interact in the gut, and how they function with the brain. And we know that the disruption of the microbiome in the gut can cause and disrupt brain function, mood, craving suppression, energy, all determined by specific bacteria or sometimes fungus in the microbiome. And then they send those messages directly to the brain. So are you feeling kind of down? Are you having some cognitive issues? Are you having a mental block or some brain fog? Well, what did you have to eat? What's going on in your body? It's interesting because this communication takes place, sending signals through the GI tract and the central nervous system. This is known as the gut-brain axis. So when people say, well, I was just thinking with my gut, well, that may actually be true, right? And it's funny because this communication actually happens with the lymph system, blood circulation, and the vagus nerve. So the picture that you see on the side of the screen there is actually a highlighted picture, which I thought was pretty cool, the vagus nerve. They highlighted the stomach there. It seems like an inflamed stomach, but it's a pretty cool picture of the vagus nerve, and I wanted to show you how that's intertwined. So Dr. Rosenbaum says, I submit to you that any disease that has an autoimmune component, whether it's Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, autism, atherosclerosis, obesity, diabetes, or any disease that you are seeing in your clinics with an immune component, the microbiome is having some effect. Bottom line is that the bacteria in your microbiome are playing a critical role in what's happening. And whatever we're putting into our bodies is having an effect on that bacteria. So the question is, what are we putting into our bodies? Well, we live in an industrialized society. We have everything that's manufactured, including our food. Our food is actually even more processed today than it ever has been. And there are several things that can impact the bacteria or the microbiome on the food that we eat. And again, this matters because that microbiome is actually what's sending messages to our brain. So we want to make sure that everything's clear there. So we know that GMO crops can have negative impact on both the foods that we eat and our bodies. We know that pesticides or weed killer kills bacteria in the body, and then when that bacteria is no longer present, it's not there to help create enzymes to help break down food or other biological processes that need to happen, like creating biosalts. This can lead to additional issues as we move down the line, which could be autoimmune issues, leaky gut, brain fog. We have a study that we're going to talk about later that's actually linked to memory and dementia from killing specific bacteria in the gut. And we know that foods cooked in additional sugars or fats can cause damage to microbes in the digestive tract. We can help reproliferate this with, diverse probiotics, a diverse diet, and helping support that with good, healthy fiber to help re-cleanse and clear out the gut. An example of this is glyphosate. So I want to just walk you through this process, kind of what happens. So in the body, we have glyphosate. It kills off the beneficial bacteria. Let's take an example as bifidobacteria and lactobacillus. Both are very important to the microbiome. When those die off, you still need the enzymes, but the bacteria used to help create enzymes. Well, we don't have those enzymes now present. And so lactobacillus creates special enzymes that break down milk casing proteins. And when those enzymes are missing, then babies, as an example, can create milk protein or lactose intolerance. Then if you happen to have that in your diet, it causes inflammation. That sends negative signals through the gut up into the brain and can cause some issues. If we take that a step further, then we can actually take it a step further and get into leaky gut, which is where we have pathogens that take hold because the beneficial bacteria are weak or gone. And then those pathogens can induce leaky gut, inflammatory gut, or allow additional things to come into the system. So it's important we make sure that we actually take care of the gut overall so that our brains can function as they should. Now, one of the things that we have that can help support this is Dr. Tennant's Microbiome Support. We actually have an updated version of this. In the last couple of months, we have an updated formula that has added immune and digestive support. Now, a couple things that I want to point out here that are specifically targeting brain health. So we have glutamine, we have whole vitamin C, we have vitamin D3, which we know vitamin D3 is critical both for the liver, it's both for the body and for the brain. And so when we look at these things, we want to make sure that we have that. We also have humic and fulvic acids to help transport that through the system. We have this set up to specifically help with detoxification, re-cleansing the gut, clearing out the gut, and making sure that that's set. And if we take a look at the specific ingredients, we will get into how we can actually support the liver down the line, but we know that we need to be able to support both digestion and liver support to be able to have a clearly functioning brain. Glutathione, adding additional glutathione and additional digestive support, including D3, really helps with that. Now let's dive in kind of a new path from the microbiome to the liver-brain connection. So does anybody have any idea how much energy the liver uses in the body? This surprised me. So the brain uses 20% of the body's energy, and the liver also uses 20% of the brain's energy. So when you look at the level of importance and you look at how much time or how much energy is actually being spent, the liver is spending a significant amount of energy. And so, okay, well then that drives me to ask, okay, well, what does the liver do? Well, the liver has over 500 different functions. It's made specifically, targeted. It's the main detox organ for the body. And one of the functions that we're looking at is that it actually converts MCTs to ketones. And then it also helps with stress and regulating stress and levels of cortisol, or if you have excessive levels of cortisol, then that can work. Now, the challenge is if your liver doesn't work, then you can have a challenge now with stress, with detox, with converting ketones to MCTs so that your brain actually has longer lasting energy and fuel. The nice thing about brain food is that even if your liver doesn't work very well, you're still going to have some additional support. And then it also contains some additional liver support to help the liver detox that. So if your liver doesn't work because it's dysfunctional or may have cirrhosis, then you're going to have a hard time with adrenal detox and regulation of your stress levels. You'll have less bile production and have difficulty actually breaking down fats, and then won't be able to absorb the fat soluble vitamins. So A, D, E, K, omega-3s, fatty acids, those are all required, and fat soluble vitamins. And so if the liver is not functioning, you're going to have a really difficult time with that, especially elevating those D levels. So the liver's function on the brain. Well, the liver cleanses the body of toxins, and if the liver can't adequately remove the toxins from the body, toxic buildup can occur. And this can lead to decreasing function of the liver. If this goes long enough, and if the liver doesn't function, there's less bile production, which means it can't break down those fats, it can't remove the toxic waste, it causes a backlog of waste systems, and then it gets into the bloodstream and causes additional issues, eventually ending up in the brain. All right, so we know that a healthy liver is essential for a healthy brain. And we know that the liver is the main detoxifying organ in the body. The question is, well, how do you know if it's working or not? Well, we have a picture of a healthy liver and a liver with cirrhosis here. And we know that some signs that you have a healthy liver are that you're going to feel better. You're going to have more energy, clearer skin, better digestion, reduced inflammation, improved mood. All of those things that we talked about that help in the gut and the microbiome, they're similar here. Now, if we look at things that aren't working well, we have some signs that you may have some accumulated toxins. So you have dark circles under your eyes, right? Struggle to focus or feel super foggy, brain fog as an example. Still tired or sleeping, after sleeping all the way through the night, you get 7.5, 8 hours of sleep. You wake up and you still feel like you are drained and having a difficult time focusing. It may be that we need to do a little bit of detox work on the liver. Now, something else that's a little surprising is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And it's estimated that at least 25% of the population has this. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is a condition where cirrhosis of the liver occurs, but it's not from consuming alcohol. And the highest culprit, the biggest culprit for this is high fructose corn syrup. Studies have shown us that high fructose corn syrup is 20 times more likely to cause non-alcoholic fatty liver disease than alcohol alone. That's insane. Absolutely insane. And the other side of that is that folks who are overweight aren't the most at risk. It's the folks who are not overweight, who are living their normal lives, and continuing to have high fructose corn syrup and the other things that are coming into their bodies, causing this damage, and then they become even more susceptible to that. It's kind of like that sneaky toxin. Okay. I mentioned that there's something specifically about liver and brain health. Well, I dove into this and started looking in and actually found several different studies that dealt with memory loss and brain function. But one of those specifically ties in to memory loss and brain function in the liver. And I wanted to share that example with you. And this is that the liver has to function to clear out amyloid B plaques. The liver breaks these down and then removes them from the body. When the liver is compromised, it can't complete this task, right? So what would cause that? Well, if you have cirrhosis of the liver, you have a fatty liver, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, something along those lines. This plaque doesn't have anywhere to go, kind of like we talked about on the last slide. If it doesn't have anywhere to go, it backs up, gets into the bloodstream. And it eventually ends up in the arteries, the gut, and the brain. There are very few symptoms with this until 15 or 20 years pass and get down the line, and then plaque in the brain, and then the plaque in the brain starts to have an effect on dementia. Kind of crazy, but the liver support can actually work well. So we want to make sure that we're actually actively able to clear those toxins. If things go far enough, it can actually lead to brain damage, and hepatic encephalopathy is one of those ways. So this happens when there's a decline in liver function is so significant that it actually causes liver disease. Again, there are too many toxins in the bloodstream that backs up, goes up into the brain, and ends up causing brain damage. All in all, we want to make sure that we're able to have a healthy liver. So what does the liver need? Well, the liver needs support and detox. So methionine is a precursor to glutathione. We know that glutathione is a master antioxidant, so we want to make sure that we're able to have enough methionine in there. We also want choline. And so we know that choline is an essential nutrient in B vitamins. It helps break down fat in the liver and cleanse, and it can also be found in the phospholipids. So when you're looking at brain food or Restore, and you're looking at a label in general, and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, is this actually going to help? We actually do have some liver support in both brain food and Restore, and that's obviously not without design. The next thing that we can do is keep up with the bile salts. If you go on a low-fat diet, bile salts can dry up. Bile salts are the primary content of bile. A bile salt like TUDCA has the ability to break down amyloid B plaques, specifically in the brain, and increase overall brain function. Now, what's interesting with this is there was another study that we were reading about the low-fat diets and the increase of dementia from folks who are on the low-fat diets in the 80s. And so the bottom line is that we want to make sure that we have high healthy fat diets that are obviously balanced with green leafy vegetables and healthy proteins across the board. Next step would be avoiding GMO, right? So we know, and we've talked about that GMO, a lot like some of the pesticides or some of the sugars, our body doesn't necessarily know what to do with it. It can end up with excess things, or it can even be harmful. And this can actually damage the bacteria in the gut. When it damages the bacteria in the gut, then it can actually have a negative effect on what's happening in the brain, and can cause either mental fatigue, brain fog, and they're actually able to track some brain functions by the bacteria in the gut, which is kind of crazy. But we want to make sure that we're able to support that in the most beneficial way. And so the best way to do that is avoiding GMOs. Now, the next thing that we can do is maintain our vitamin D levels. So if we think about what happens with vitamin D we get from the sun, or one source of vitamin D that we can actually get from the sun. We then get that from taking it in through our skin. And then we actually convert, the skin converts UVB to vitamin D into cholecalciferol. And then the liver converts cholecalciferol to the active form in the kidneys, or I'm sorry, vitamin D in the bloodstream, and sends it to the kidneys. And then the kidneys are able to send it to the lungs. So it's this huge process that happens in our bodies, but the liver is critical in this. And so if our liver isn't functioning well, then we're not going to be able to absorb those nutrients, specifically vitamin D. And it kind of puts a wrench and a stop in that system. So we need to maintain our vitamin D levels, and bile salts are also required to process vitamin D. And vitamin D, we know that vitamin D is critical for liver function, and requires fat to be used in the body. So we want to make sure if we're taking vitamin D that we're actually taking it with a fat source. If bile salts are not present, then the body can't use the vitamin D. Bottom line, again, we're kind of coming back to that healthy fats support the liver, and making sure that we can have some of those amino acids to help clear that out. Another way that we can actually help detox, this is one of my favorites. I'm not sure how many of you have tried this. It's kind of a peppermint bubblegum flavor, but I found this picture of the tea and I thought, well, this is exactly what it looks like after you put in some raw honey and a tablespoon of coconut oil. But this is Dr. Tennant's liver detox tea, and really helps support a healthy liver. It was interesting. I ended up getting sick, and worked my way through recovery, got back to walking, got back to strength. And I just thought, hey, this has got to be good. I should probably take this liver detox tea. And as I was going through things, I ended up taking it for several weeks, and I started thinking more clearly than I ever had. And finally, by the time I had finished my recovery, my mind was running 3 times faster than I think it ever has. And I was taking science courses that I didn't ever think that I would be interested in, and signing up for things and reading and researching things that I would have had no interest in beforehand. So if you're able to detox your body, support it with the nutrients that it needs, it can certainly help that. This liver detox tea is one of the tools that I've used to do that. So Dr. Tennant's liver detox tea is a proprietary blend of 100% pure premium therapeutic grade essential oils to help support and detox the liver. It includes cinnamon bark, lemon, lemongrass, peppermint, Roman chamomile, and spearmint. You take 6 drops of this, put it into some warm water, or hot water if you'd like. Add some raw coconut oil in pure, that purified non-chlorinated water. And add the raw honey, mix it up, and enjoy. Absolutely fantastic treat. Actually helps me get to bed. So when we dive back in, I had mentioned that we were going to take a closer look at this brain food label. Well, we're here. So let's look at Dr. Tennant's brain food again. We know that Dr. Tennant's brain food has ketones and MCTs. And we state that it has ketones and MCTs and gives the brain the nutrients that it needs without stimulatory gimmicks, right? So it's not a specific nootropic that's going to give you so much of this specific ingredient that it's going to stimulate the brain and make the brain think that it needs to do this specific activity. It's just giving the brain the fuel and the need support that it needs. So let's dive through the ingredients and take a look at this. There's a lot more to brain food than just the MCTs and ketones. So we have calcium, right? Calcium is present and helps as a messenger to help with the neurotransmitter synthesis and release, and is also involved in long-term processes in the body or memory, right? Then we have K2. We have, you're using the MeniQ7 for this. It's one of the best forms that we could find. And this is present to ensure appropriate absorption of calcium and help keep the calcium out of the arteries, and improving overall circulation. Then we have potassium, right? We know that the brain needs potassium. Potassium helps brain cells communicate with cells throughout the brain, and helps nerves fire properly when it's stimulated. And then we have magnesium. Magnesium plays an important role in relaying signals between the brain and the body. Magnesium also helps helps develop nerve cells in the brain and aids in brain development, memory learning. And then there's phosphorus, right? Phosphorus is critical for brain function and strength. Low levels of phosphorus can often impair breathing and brain function, kind of a big deal. And then we have organic veggie protein. To function optimally, the central nervous system requires various amino acids found in proteins. These amino acids are used by the brain for synthesis of various neurotransmitters and neuromodulators. If we have the protein, we're going to need something to help break down that protein. And so we want to make sure that we give you the enzymes to help break down that protein so it's not just sitting in your system and causing additional issues in the gut. And we do that through providing hydrolase protein enzymes. These help digest the protein that's present and help break down into amino acids so that the body can actually digest that appropriately. Then we come into our sunflower lecithin and fatty acids and phospholipids. So we specifically, 90% of the phospholipids and lecithins on the market are soy-based. We know that soy is GMO, and we're having we want to make sure that we're giving you the best possible ingredient across the board so that your body will know what to do with it, can recognize it, and figure out how it can actually be used without any additional leftovers that it has to figure out what to do with and create some extra work. We know that sunflowers, these sunflowers are non-GMO. We can trace them from point to source, and we know all the way through production and can ensure that these are the best form of phospholipids that are used on the market. Now, the other thing is, we know that phospholipids matter because the phospholipids help make up the outside of the cell. And when we look specifically at how phospholipids break down, we have phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylnositol, and then that breaks down into choline. And we know that that's great at liver emulsification. So why fatty acids, specifically lecithin and phospholipids? Well, if we look at the brain specifically, and back up just a minute, stop looking at ingredients, take a look at the brain. About a third of the brain is in dry weight is lecithin. And so it's absolutely critical that we have adequate levels of this in whatever nutrient that we're actually providing to the brain. We need adequate levels of healthy fats. And phosphatidylcholine and phosphatidylnositol are wonderful for building the outside of the cellular wall, but they also help support the liver. Phosphatidylcholine is wonderful at detoxifying agent and helps detox the body naturally and effectively. And when broken down, choline is a wonderful emulsifier as well. So phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylnositol, which help make up our phospholipid group, are absolutely wonderful emulsifiers and help break down fat in the liver. So when we take a look at all of those ingredients, and I'll go back here, brain food is so much more than MCTs and ketones, right? We're actually looking at healthy fat support. We're looking at liver support. We're looking at actual, quick acting fuel and longer acting fuel, in addition to some additional support so that the brain can actually function and do what it needs. So if we take a moment and pause and think about everything that we have just run through, we know that brain health is integrated. It's integrated all throughout the body, but specifically in the microbiome and the liver. We know that the brain needs specific nutrients for fuel. Liver function is absolutely critical for brain health. We know that the microbiome is known as the second brain, and that 80% of those neurochemicals in the brain come from the gut microbiome. We know that bacteria in the microbiome are key for healthy brain function. Healthy fats are essential for brain function and liver support and overall health. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is common and can have a dramatic impact on overall health, and oftentimes it's unseen. So we want to make sure that we're looking for those signs and can help with brain fog and that cognitive function before it gets too far along. And then with appropriate nutrients and functioning supporting organs, the brain can actually heal and regenerate, stimulating neurogenesis. So we don't actually have to be stuck with all of the original brain cells that we had initially. Thank you for your time. I understand that your time is valuable. It is precious. We are grateful at Tennant Products that you have taken the time to watch this, to spend time with us. We do believe that it's your body, it's your life, and ingredients matter, and that the body never forgets how to heal itself. And when it runs correctly, it does heal itself. So thank you so much for your time. I sincerely appreciate it.